Hello, dear friends and followers. Welcome back to Officer Aerospy YouTube channel. So, in today's course, let's understand the subject of mass and balance, which is very essential in the pilot's preparation for every flight which is subjected to the airplane performance. And this preparation of the flight departure must takes place to complete the mass and balance calculation. And you can see the chart here. And this is the chart which is used to check the imbalance of the mass, and it has to be checked and calculated by the operator of an airplane. So this documentation needs to be prepared by the pilot in command before the operation of the aircraft, and has to check and sign the mass and balance documentation. And there are some set of terminologies. The main set is the calculation and the changing of center of gravity. Let's understand the mass. Mass is the quantity of the matter in the body. Weight is the force produced when the mass is subjected to the gravity. And this is the basic thing. And there are set of units which are considered. Mass is given in the pounds and weight is given in the pounds force, which can be kilograms, and weight is given in the newton. So this is the international standards, what we call SI unit. And in the study of mass imbalance, preferably these kilograms as well as these newtons, what we can see here, are used. So let's understand how the basic force of gravity will affect on the total mass of the airplane in the vertically downward manner, both when it is in the air as well as the ground. And this mass which is acting is called as normally the center of gravity. So we can find now. So what happens is, in the aeroplane flight manual, when we are dealing with the center of gravity, we use it. And later in the course, we can comprehensively study upon what are the factors given in the flight manual in the later chapters. But now, individually or collectively, this is very important for the aeroplane operation. And we will be looking into the effects of the exceeding mass and the center of gravity limits, which can cause a wrong as well as the disastrous consequences, as recently happened for Air India AI 171. Okay, so the structure, the limiting parameters are documented in the aeroplane flight manual. And basically, what happens is, whenever the exceeding limit is there, we will have to suffer for the serious incidents or the worst accidents naturally. So, better to prepare for the worst, and we have to be safe and secure. We need to understand what are the limits and exceeding parameters, which can cause several effects on the mass limitations. So, let's understand. The aeroplane flight manual will have to deal with one set of moment which is created by center of gravity, and we will have to look into the factors which can affect the mass as well as balance of the aeroplane operation. So let's have a discussion about the mass and limits, which is effect of exceeding the limits for takeoff and landing. Let's understand this. So the results would be limiting to takeoff as well as landing distance requirements. When the effect of exceeding mass limits will result in the rate of climb and ceiling of the flight level being reduced. So another effect will occur for the mass, which will be reducing the airplane's range as well as the endurance. The airplane speed range will also be affected if the mass limits are exceeded, and it will reduce the maximum speed, normally a Mach number of an airplane, and increase the stalling speed, which you can see now. And this will be very important, and the effect is very severe on the airplane maneuverability. So normally we can notice the effect of mass limits were exceeded when the airplane tires, brakes, and the excess mass would quickly wear of the tires. The tires and brakes are shortening their life, exceeding the mass limits, and this will unduly stress on the airframe, and this will reach to the shorten of the fatigue life of an aeroplane, and previously that we learned in the center of gravity. So the normal mass looks like this, the excess mass will be showcased here. And let's look into initial exceeding the forward limits. This will result in the increase of the stalling speed, and what happens is there comes the effect of center of gravity, which is in the forward limit, and this will affect in the longitudinal stability of the aircraft because the shift has been taken to the forward limits. And now what happens is the aeroplane requiring larger control surfaces, deflections, and this can only be controlled by the pilot fatigue, which is another factor for exceeding the forward limits. The tailplane must produce the larger balances to counteract the downward force, and this increased tail force requires the increased elevator deflections, which will add only to the total drag, and this will result in the fuel consumption and subsequently reduce the range as well as the endurance, which is exceeding the forward limits. This can seriously affect the speed used for the takeoff calculations, notably by the decision speed and the rotor speed. And the minimum unstick speed which is used will also result in the increment of the takeoff distance, which in turn having the exceeding forward center of gravity. This is very serious matter. This is to be avoided and vitally important to act on aft limits, which is not to exceed the limits which are mentioned already. Therefore, the longitudinal stability is reduced, which means the stick force can cause the flat spin, and unusual circumstances can result to the crashes. As we learnt previously, as you can see, the maneuverability of the aircraft is affected. The range as well as endurance, once it is decreased, this will affect inevitably for the airplane and can affect seriously to the aft limit of the airplane as discussed. So in this lesson, we can study about how the increment in the drag has been done, as well as how the effects of mass and balance will result in the airplane performance. So in the next lesson, let's understand more comprehensively about this, the association between the mass and center of gravity. We learnt in addition to the difference between the mass and weight, we learnt about the effect of exceeding the center of gravity limits as well as the effect of airplane performance if the mass limits are exceeded.